Keir Starmer's worst nightmare has become a reality. Nigel Farage destroyed them with his truth, which shocked Labour to the core. Farage didn't just criticise Labour, he exposed their deepest fears and mistakes. He fully revealed the truth about the party and exposed them. He's not just criticising Starmer's party, he's accusing them of betrayal so deep it could undermine their electoral base. Farage claims that Labour remains silent about what he calls the biggest problem facing Britain today. Now we'll figure out what happened.
We're in much deeper trouble than anybody on either front bench dares to admit. It's a reality we should all face, and I have to say that, for a Labour Party that couldn't define what a woman was, couldn't define what a working person was, well, after today I'm pretty convinced they can't define what economic growth is. Thank you.
Labour's silence is not just indifference to the problems and the people. This strategy is aimed at avoiding a collision with the harsh realities that their stupid policies have created. We are facing catastrophic changes and changes in our country. Farage argues that this is not just a change, it is a crisis. But how bad is it really? Farage is not shy about naming shocking figures. He claims that more than 700,000 migrants arrived in the UK last year alone. However, the Labour Party absolutely does not care about this. They are silent and pretend not to hear this truth and do not see it. He accuses them of promising voters one thing, but in fact completely ignored all their promises and, conversely, aggravate everything they wanted to fix.
You came to Britain illegally during the last Labour government. Your feet didn't touch the sides. You were gone, you were out. Indeed, in the last year of the Labour government, from 2009 to 10, 50,000 people who came here illegally were deported. Now, none of that happens anymore. It didn't happen under 14 years of Conservatives, and it clearly isn't going to happen under this Labour government. And I wonder why. I think you'll find it's the increased role of a court overseas that was set up in the wake of World War II with the very, very best of intentions that has now completely outlived its usefulness.
Schools, housing, and the National Health Service will bear a very heavy burden. To change the situation, it is necessary to impose immediate strict restrictions on immigration. Britain needs to regain control of its borders now. Farage argues that this immigration crisis is only a small percentage of Labour's failures. He promised to make even more revelations, promising to talk about how Labour's policies could cause even more harm to all of us. And with each new exposure, respect for the starter and his team falls into the abyss. Speaking of the budget, this is the greatest betrayal of the people. Farage does not just criticize their budget promises, he accuses them of falsifying the entire economic plan. They fantasize about the greatest changes in the country, but in fact this is the ravings of a madman. However, Farage believes that the country's debt is much greater than it was announced to us, and the Labour Party is carefully trying to hide this.
The big picture is we're in decline. We're getting poorer. There isn't a £22 billion black hole, that's nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion. Our debt repayments are 90 billion a year. And from all the figures I've seen today, that will be worse in 5 years' time than it is today.
This is not just a gap in their budget. It is a chasm that can engulf the British economy entirely. Farage warns that their Labour Party's dreams of improving the economy could hit our well-being. Their wasteful spending can only lead to one result: we will become poorer. At a time when many Britons are already experiencing difficulties, they do not care at all about the consequences of their policies. Farage is counting on their projected growth of 1.5%, calling it extremely insufficient, given the expected demographic boom due to immigration.
Any business employing 5 or more people has today been hammered. And I make the point that I've set up companies and run companies. Nobody on the front bench has ever worked in private business. Nobody on the front bench understands what genuine risk capital is. Our business secretary, from what I can make out, has never even had a job. But the most dismal part, no, I've had plenty of jobs. Well, apart from being in the European Parliament, which doesn't really count, obviously. But I got to tell you, what is dismal about this budget is the growth forecast. If the ambition of our Chancellor is that in 4 years' time, growth should be 1.5%, that is very, very bad news for everybody, and particularly because it takes no account of the rise in population that will happen through legal immigration. It basically means a rise of zero. And nobody's even mentioned today the fact that gross domestic product per capita, wealth per capita, has been falling consistently nearly every single quarter for the last.
Farage's final forecast is an economic disaster, and Labour's policies may collapse. Britain is experiencing an economic downturn, compared to which previous crashes seem like minor setbacks. We need a fundamental change in Britain's approach to work and success. Labour's policies generate dependence, not the pursuit of success. Britain needs to rediscover its entrepreneurial spirit, which values hard work and innovation. Without these changes, disaster awaits us. With each passing day, the stakes for Britain's economic future continue to fall. Farage claims to have uncovered a sinister conspiracy that could silence Labour. Starmer actively suppresses any discussions and debates on important issues. The Labour Party is desperately trying to hide the unpleasant truth. Speaking about the recent crime in Southport, Farage says he was banned from even mentioning it in Parliament. Labour is using a government mechanism to keep the British in the dark. He is sounding the alarm about Labour's position on hate speech laws. In our country, expressing the wrong opinion can lead to the fact that we can be imprisoned. Farage points to the information vacuum associated with incidents like the Southport attack as proof that censorship has already begun and the public is being kept in the dark.